All right. Hello. Welcome to the Channel of Curiosity podcast. We have a fun guest episode today. I'm really excited. We're chatting with Brandi. Brandi and I met on TikTok, and she is a 3/5 splenic projector. And we're just gonna chat about all things life and human design today. So thank you for hanging out, Brandi.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here, Rebecca. Thank you for inviting me to be on this podcast with you today.
Yes. Well, thank you for inviting me first. That was
Yeah,
great.
yeah, absolutely.
Yes, yes. So if you haven't listened to Brandy's podcast or she interviewed me, y'all go check that out. Um, and Brandy's TikTok because you have a lot of fun things on your TikTok. So
I try to keep it light and I try to keep it fun.
yes, sometimes it can be hard to do because of
Yeah.
life.
Well, because I feel like sometimes I love talking about the limitations. That's one of the things where I like to focus on. I like focusing on the not self, but sometimes I can come off negative. People are like, why are you calling me out? And I'm like, I'm not calling you out. I'm not trying to point something out. I'm just saying, like, if this is how you're behaving, maybe we should put some awareness and maybe we should shine a light right here so that we can grow some more awareness. So I try to keep it light while also giving you a little bit of information that you may possibly need or want.
Yes, yes, or need and not want, but
That.
need. Yes, and I feel like is this part of the splenic wisdom? Like the spleen is like, look, because you have a little bit more of a no nonsense approach that I really appreciate. I feel like when I'm watching your stuff or listening to you, it feels a little more grounded and like, hey, here's the stuff that we need. Whereas I feel like I'm just always analyzing something. I mean,
That sounds like motivation, right? Because I got need motivation. So I'm like, I'm going to tell you what you need. I'm going to give you what you need. And like, that's all I'm going to focus on. And I'm not going to focus on all the details. I'm not going to focus on the things that are unnecessary. Like, what do you need? What actions do we need to take place? Right. Because even my tone, I've got action tone under my motivation. So I'm looking at like, what action do we need to take to move forward? So I feel like with me, it's really that motivation arrow that really a lot of people feel that I'm really tapping into, that I kind of always done, but didn't know that I was doing that until human design
yeah.
got brought to light. But yeah, in my content and in, I guess, one, thank you for noticing that. It's so interesting. This is why I love doing these podcast interviews, because as a projector, we can't see ourselves. And I'm like, shit, is that what it looks like over there on your end? Because I have no idea that's how it feels for you.
Yes. Yes, I've been thinking about this a lot because I'm working with a new like business coach person who I love, and I've been following her for like a year, and she is a Manny-gen, right? But she's amazing. That's a whole other thing I can go down. I got to ask you about. Now I just got 12 different ideas. But she was asking me questions a couple days ago, and I was like, I don't know. And she's like, sure you do. And I'm like, no, like I really don't. I kind of need you to tell me things.
Yeah. So that's where, like, one of the things that I tell my clients when it comes to projector children, like, if you can just get very specific, like, hey, your content feels grounding, it feels you're telling people exactly what they need. I'm like, oh, great. I'm glad that's what you're getting out of that. And I'm glad that's what you're seeing, because that's my root coming in. That's my spleen coming in. And because I only have one channel, you only have one channel, right? So there's, with me, one of the things that I really recognized is that 28-38 channel is a very competitive, edgy energy. And that's kind of unconsciously like what I put in my content. And it's kind of the way that it comes out. I have that gate 28 in my subconscious earth. So I have this, I feel like the way my content comes out, you're right, no nonsense. I'm like, what risk are you taking? Because if you're messing around and just taking risks that are causing more chaos in your life, then you need to slow down and really analyze the actions that you're taking, because you have a choice and we choose to be who we want to be. But a lot of us are operating subconsciously and just putting our energy everywhere. So for me, in my content, I can see how it feels grounding and it feels kind of that wisdom, because I feel like that gate 28 really kind of comes through with that channel of struggle in my content.
Yes. Yes, you're so right. And that's what I'm feeling to and what I'm picking up on. And I'm glad you brought up that channel because I was going to ask you about that too. There's something really potent about having only one channel in your design. It's like, okay, well, here's what I'm here to do. Here we go. And and whenever I interact with a new client or someone with the channel of struggle, the 2838, and they're like, well, I don't want to struggle my whole life. So I was curious. I'm going to tell you how I perceive it and like how I describe it, and you tell me if this feels good and like just add to like your experience of it. So I just really see it as, of course, it's knowing what struggle is worth it to survive, right? Like you're looking at, this is what needs to happen for life to happen. And I always get this image of basically a seed turning into a tree. Like you put a seed in the dirt and then it's got to kind of struggle to get the first little bits out. Like the roots come down and then the stem comes out and it struggles through the dirt and then it struggles up. And so it's it's like, yeah, it's a struggle to get out of the shell of the seed, but it's turning into a tree. That's what it has to do to create life. And that's basically how I see it. How does that feel for you?
Yeah. I mean, spot on. I mean, that's yes. For me, the channel of struggle, just because it is my only channel. And it was so funny when I first saw my human design, I was like, son of a bitch, like, what is this? I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense because truly I feel like when I really want something, like I struggle for it. Like I will literally do whatever it takes. I used to compete in CrossFit, you know what I mean? And I don't have a lot of energy, but when I was in a competition and I was like, I'm struggling for first, I'm like, I will put every ounce of pressure and stress and energy that I have into something. And that's that gate 38. That's where gate 38 is like, I'm going to give you absolutely everything I have. And I'm going to fight with every ounce of being in my soul to get whatever I am trying to evolve into. And that's where it really is. You need to pick what struggle that you're really fighting for, or you're just going to have this unnecessary struggle, or you're fighting for things that are not bringing you purpose, that are not helping you evolve, that are not helping you also, you know, because every time we evolve with that channel of struggle, every struggle that I get through, or every challenge that I am able to pass and to exceed, that brings a mutation to the collective, to the tribe, to the people that I'm around. So with me, it really is about being intentional with what I am struggling for, because I have seen this energy in a really unhealthy expression, but I've also seen it in a very amazing expression as well. So it really has that, it has a lot of depth when it comes to that struggle, but it also has a lot of light. Like you said, that seed and then that tree. So I feel like that description is a great way to describe it.
Okay, good. I always like to check in with people because obviously I don't have that and I don't have either of the gates. So I'm like,
one thing that I do like to say, because I like to use the boxing analogy, whereas in order for a challenge, for me to know that I'm in a challenge that's working for me, it's like I have to be pressing up against it. Like it has to be hard. Like it has to be a challenge. If I'm just coasting, I'm like, no, something's not, this isn't, where's the challenge? Where's, you know what I mean? Like I love the challenge. I love the process, but there has to be something that I'm pressing against. It's almost like I have to feel that resistance in order to know that I'm growing, if that makes sense.
Yes, I got you. And that fits in really well with CrossFit too, I feel like, because you have to push yourself through that. You have to feel that resistance of putting, you know how sometimes you just put 2.5s on the bar and like that's it. It's the tiniest weight, but all of a sudden you can't do it. And you gotta you gotta figure out where your form is falling apart and have that boundary. Like that's the boundary to help you get stronger and better.
100%. And one thing that I was, I've actually just made this realization the other day, because, okay, root, right? So if your root is connected to your spleen, I believe that having a repetitive way to release that root energy is healthy. And then if your root is connected to your solar plexus, it's almost like more of a creative energy that you're expressing, right? So it's like a competitive expression and maybe a creative expression to help release that root pressure. And then when it's the format energies, it's more like a physical activity, right? Something that's physically happening. So that's the way that I've really been analyzing the root and the way that it's expressed, because it does depend on what you have defined in your root, where is it attached, and where is it being released as well.
Yes, absolutely. Because that root it just controls so much if you're not in tune with it.
It really does. I mean, I honestly, when I'm ungrounded, yeah, my root, okay, this is just my experience. I'm not saying that this is for everybody. I'm not saying that this is what happens if you're unbalanced in your root. This has just been my experience. But with the gates that I have, I've got gate 39, I've got gate 50 or gate 54, I've got gate 53, I've got gate 38, I got gate 41. I've got all these gates in my root, right? So the root is a really big pressure center for me. And when I am not consciously aware and staying active and staying balanced, I have had a lot of addiction problems. From alcohol to prescriptions to uppers. Alcohol would be considered a downer, right? Like I've literally had a wide variety of addictions. And to me, the more that I learn about my human design and the more that I learn about the root center, right? When you're not staying healthy and expressing this energy, because this energy is not about talking. The root is not expressed. It's not to the throat. It takes a while to get to the throat, right? And because it's not attached to the throat, this is not about talking. This is about movement. This is about action. This is about evolving. This is about pushing. And if you have that root defined and it's heavily defined and you're not expressing or moving in this, you could have, depression. You could have I'm not saying you can have addictions. I'm not putting that on anybody, but from my experience, it evolved into addictions because that pressure would get so loud that I would find different things to suppress exactly what I was feeling inside.
Okay. No, I'm glad you shared that because that makes a lot of sense. And I think being undefined there, I just kind of have this jealousy sometimes, like, oh, well, if I was defined, I would be able to be more grounded most of the time, or I would have more of a connection to my body or something like that. But I think it's important to really talk about the not self that can happen inside of the definition and what can show up there, because yeah, having a defined root, I can only imagine could be fairly overwhelming, especially pre-human design when you don't know what's happening. You're just feeling it in your body.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I think gate 38 is actually one of those gates where if you're not, remaining healthy and fighting for things in a way where you're putting your purpose and this energy towards something that really aligns with you, then that's an energy where when it's turned inward can cause, or you can develop addictions towards sex, drugs, and alcohol because of that gate. It's almost like you're fighting for something. And then I think gate 39, right? Because I now live a minimalistic life. I noticed when I saw gate 39, one of the things is hoarding, right? Like, because it's the other side is abundance. So when you don't trust your abundance, you don't trust your faith, you don't trust in that the universe will provide for you, then you hang on to everything, right? And so when you're provoking, gate 39 has this ability in its low expression to want to hoard things because it feels lack of abundance, especially if you don't have that channel all the way through.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So had you previously been a hoarder of anything?
I don't know. Okay. I wouldn't say I hoarded things, but it was hard for me to let go of things. So I moved into an RV, not because I kind of wanted to. It was like life happened that way. And now I'm just like embracing it. And now I'm like, hell yeah, RV life. Screw buying a house right now. The house marketing. I will wait until something happens, but we're going to live this lifestyle for a little bit. But when I moved into an RV, let me back up. I grew up in a household that had a very strong lack mindset. It was like, don't do this. This is going to break. We can't afford this. You cannot do that. Like, it was just like, oh, we can't break anything. We can't do anything because we're not going to get it again. So there was so much pressure to like be perfect and not mess up. And so, of course, that has carried over. Right. And so like when I moved from a house into an RV, it was hard for me to be like, well, I need to hang on to this and I need to hang on to that. It was almost like this true lack. And then as my life kept unfolding, I had to keep losing things, not because because I wanted to, but because the universe was like, hey, shit's happening. You need to pick either to survive or to hang on onto all this stuff. So like over the past few years, I've just literally gotten rid of everything. And what's been so beautiful even now is working on my mindset. And like, I'm so comfortable. I know where everything is, like everything I have, I know exactly where it is. And that's such well, my gate 4, right? Hates chaos. So formulating answers, it's organized. So I've had experiences where I could see where I wanted to hoard. Just unfortunately, life kind of taught me that I didn't have that choice, but now I recognize it and it's not an issue now.
Okay. So it's interesting how you grew up in this family with like this perfectionism, like don't mess up because we're not gonna like we can't replace things, so just be perfect. But here you come into the world with only the channel of struggle and a conscious 3 line.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like you're basically here to
Mess up.
yep.
Mess things up, try things, screw things up. Yeah. Yeah. It's so, yeah, that's why I have a lot of trauma from my childhood. I just honestly have a lot of trauma. I haven't been diagnosed with it, but I'm 70 to 80% sure I have complex PTSD. But you know, it's just, we're here and we're dealing with it. And that's the reality of it.
Yeah. Well, I was diagnosed with CPTSD at one point. Like actually in the midst of my divorce, the doctor's like, "You have PTSD from your marriage." And I was like, "Oh, that sounds great." So so I feel you on that. And that's something that we were talking about earlier too, about being so open and kind of the trauma that can happen inside of the open centers. And I feel like, especially as projectors with the penetrating aura, like we're designed to be conditioned by people in our environment because that's how we figure out what's happening with it and how we become the guides of it. And then to have 7 open centers, it's just a lot. So what has been your experience with this? And also like how do you regulate?
Such a loaded question.
Yes, I know.
Okay.
I do that a lot. Sorry. Just
No, it's okay. I'm just
talk
trying to
about
think.
what comes up.
Yeah, because it's so interesting, because I'm still in this massive healing phase, right? Like I am in no shape to say like, oh, I've been through this trauma and I've came out healed. Like I'm still in it, trying to figure it out, trying to navigate it, especially with all my family generational trauma that's still coming through. So with the open centers, how have I navigated that? Well, so one thing that's been really freeing for me is that I have a really interesting relationship with my mother. And what I mean by that is by no contact. And I go for no contact for my own sake, for my own mental health, and for my own just sanity. And really understanding my human design has allowed me to just really be at peace with that situation and to be at peace with the relationship. And what's been really powering for me is for the first time in my life, I'm letting my mom write my own narrative for her. Like my mom is literally saying whatever, I don't even care. But instead of trying to fix the narrative that my mom is displaying, instead of trying to control what my mom is saying, like, I'm just like, you know what, whatever, you know what, just paint whatever picture you have of me, but then just leave me alone, like just, that's fine. And so understanding my open centers, understanding that I've been avoiding my truth, that has been a huge one, right? I just got my mom's chart the other day and I'm like, oh my God, this makes so much sense, man. My mom's an emotional projector and I'm like, oh, I'm wide open in my solar plexus, wide open, no
Yes.
gates. So like, man, when she'd come in with like these balls of anger, man, and I would just feel it. And you know what's so crazy is that I still have those reactions to this day where I get so overwhelmed and I start reacting and I have to, it sucks because like I consciously see myself doing it, but in the moment I have to figure out how to grasp and get myself back into a regulated state because I can get so overwhelmed in that emotional solar plexus because I believe my household has conditioned me that I don't I still have a hard time just observing that energy, especially when it comes in loud, like I felt like my mom used to do. So when it
Yeah.
comes in hot, I'm like, hold on, what is this? You don't come in here at me like that fighter, right? My channel of struggle is like, who are you coming in here at like that? So it's
Mhm.
been a process to process all of these experiences that I've had and how I still handle just even that center and how it shows up for me and how I'm still learning how to be less reactive. Like that's still one of the most important things that I focus on is like how to be less reactive in these emotional settings, because that's when I have the most power within myself. That's when I'm able to make the most decisions or the best decisions. So it's been interesting. Because I have so many experiences that I felt like have been traumatic that can relate to each center. And
Mhm.
so going through and really seeing how they have showed up, like, of course, the heart center, right? We all talk about the heart center,
Yes.
but like understanding how I have subconsciously tried to prove myself in every aspect of my entire life. And I mean, when every single aspect, from the career that I chose to the job that I was doing to the relationships that I in, hell, even my sexuality, right? Like my sexuality was a huge thing that was hard for me to speak about that. Like my mom would bash and say the ugliest things when she thought that I was gay. And I knew I was gay when I was 8 years old. I kissed a girl when I was 8 years old. But my entire life growing up, because my mom made it such a negative thing, I hid my truth. I hid who I was. I dated people on my team and I wouldn't try to tell her. Like it was hard. And I felt trapped, right? My open G center. I was there's so much that really comes through. So when you have these open centers and you've had maybe traumatic experiences, it's really interesting to dive in and to make these connections and to see, wow, I see why I felt so trapped in this relationship, or wow, I see why I was trying to prove myself, or why I was trying to get out and get into a different environment. So it really makes sense to why I was trying to do these things. But now knowing, right, like my design, I'm just able to take better control of the situation and not feel so chaotic. Like my 20s were just chaos, man. Just
Yeah.
absolute chaos.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered your question or not.
No, that was great. I don't know why I got like so emotional.
Oh,
No, thank you for sharing so much of that. I related to uh, all of it, really. But especially the emotional mom. My mom is a emotional manifester and has the
mm,
1222, and so there was a lot of conditioning around that, especially like that 1222 will just jump into anger really quick,
yeah.
and I can feel it, and it's that helped me to understand what was happening because I had some weird stuff too, and my mom tries, like, luckily there was no, like, overt stuff, but it was just life. But then the universe in its wisdom, I have my younger son is an emotional manifester with the 1222. So I'm like learning on both ends as a daughter and a mom, and I'm like, this is just funny to watch.
Yeah.
But the heart center too, the proving, oh my gosh, being able to kind of release that. But you have some big gates too, like you have the 51. So I imagine, how does that work with you? Like, has there been shocking experiences? Do you feel like you sometimes say stuff to people and then they're like, whoa? Or
All the time. I mean, so that gate 51 sits in my subconscious Mercury, right? So this is really my
right.
voice. It's truly my voice and how I speak. And so excuse me, some of the things that I say, they're shocking. People are like, what just happened? What did you just say? And that's one of the things that's one of the powers, or one of my biggest gifts, is that I can go in, and the things that I say, they're meant to shock you. They're meant to wake you up. And have I had shocking experiences? Yeah. Before we hopped on this call, I was talking about how I got shot at a couple days ago,
Yeah.
So like I go through the strangest experiences, but I've been almost homeless, practically homeless. I've had, my dad was an addict. My mom is a narcissist. I have my family. We're all just trying to figure out how to heal from all this stuff that's still happening. Like we're all still going through things, because should I say it or should I not? My mom is just not in the best state, if that's the best
Mm,
way to say it, right?
yeah.
So, oh, where was I going with this? Oh, the shocking experiences. So I do, especially as a third line,
Yeah.
like I'm bumping into things. The channel of struggle, like yeah, things just happen. Things are just happening, and I'm kind of just allowing it. I don't know, but I will say, will say this. In my 20s, when I was making decisions not from my authority, from all of my other centers, the chaos that came, a lot of it could have been avoided if I was using my strategy and my authority, if I was using and operating in my design. A lot of the shocking experiences that I've had, may have came because I've been in situations and not making the best decisions, right? Learning through that trial and error process. So yes, and you know what's interesting? That Gate 51 wants to be first, and it wants to be competitive, right? It wants to be shocking. And then I got that channel of struggle that's like competitive. So one of the big things for me when I'm operating out of alignment, I'm like, I want to be first. I want to beat you. I want to do this. I want to beat that. I want to be the best. And it's like, who are you trying to prove this stuff to? Like, who are you trying to beat, Brandi? Like, what are you trying to do? Like, your only competition is yourself. And that's where, like, I have this mantra, like, audience of one. Like, you're your only audience. Just perform for you. Do it for you. You're not doing it for anybody else. And that's been a real thing for me to ground myself with, because before I'm like, who's my biggest competition? Who do I need to beat? How can I be shocking? How can I come in here and make things happen? And it's like, I don't need to make things happen. Things are going to happen regardless.
Right.
That's where I went wrong, right? I was like, I just need to like step back and let these things happen rather than going in being like, how can I make this shocking? Because that's what I used to do.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Trying to create the shock just because the energy was in you instead of just kind of being in it.
Yeah. There's a healthy way to do it, right? Like, I don't need to go in proving things. It's more about that Gate 51 needs to be waken up, right? It's in an undefined center, so it's dormant. So it's something where something will happen. It will be woken up. It will show up. I don't need to go in and just try to be the best at everything and trying to prove myself. So that's that not self that kind of comes through whenever you're amplifying that energy from that undefined heart center.
Yeah. That's a big one to have undefined.
Yeah. I feel it. I do feel it.
um, and then like you were saying, the shocking thing, like when I was looking at your chart, I'm like, oh, okay. Like I was thinking about your content and the unconscious Mercury in 51, and then how we were talking about your, like you're just a little more like you're straightforward in your content and your messaging. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. It's like, hey, here's what's happening. You're not messing around, right?
Yeah. Shock, like, what are we here for? What are we
Yes.
doing? Let's wake up.
Yes.
Let's wake up.
Oh, you're so right. And this is where human design helps me personally, because I will get in comparison mode. Like, and I'm like, okay, well, Brandy's doing this. Like, how come I'm not as good at as Brandy? How come I'm not having, like, people aren't reacting to me the way they are to Brandy? What do I need to do? Right. It's like, well, because we're different, and I'm not here to shock people. I'm just not.
But I
So,
find your videos so informative, and so in the way that you share them, like,
yeah.
really, you truly do bring that stimulation where, like, I feel like I've got to be shocking and I've got to come in and I've got to be right here, right? Where you can just, the things that you say, there is this stimulation that comes through. And so for me, I feel like I've got to bring the energy and exert the energy, and it's working for me. So that's honestly
Yeah.
the reason why I do it.
Yeah, no, it totally works for you. It's great. And yeah, I just say, like, for anybody else who tries to compare themselves or finds themselves comparing themselves, like, stop. You're not meant to be Brandy. You're not meant to be me. You're meant to be you. So embrace that.
Do you feel like you always have things to talk about in your content because
Um,
you've got a defined ajna to throat?
it depends. I find that I when I'm by myself, no, because I don't realize what I know.
Mm,
And
that
you know,
right
I've got
arrow.
the right mind. I have the left brain, but the right mind, and then just projector and 1156. And so there's times where I'm like, who cares what I have to say? Like
Mm,
literally it means nothing. But when I'm on live or something and then people start asking me questions, then that helps me realize what people are actually wondering about and what to talk about. So, and it's
that's
probably the mental projector aspect too. Like I have nothing driving me inside. Like I don't, who wants to hear me talk about stuff? That seems
right.
really boring. So
Feel you. That's an interesting with the arrow. You don't
yeah,
know what you know.
yeah. Well, and I'm fear motivation, so we're opposite, right? And so like basically the more I look at like details of my chart, I'm like, oh, I really am just here to be like a wealth of knowledge and to share what I know. That's basically what's going on. And then I just forgot my tone under the fear.
Uh,
Hold on. I'll get it really quick because of course I have it pulled up. Um, judgment. Judgment.
Judgment. So you're judging things, right? And
Yeah.
building a solid foundation off of what you see and what needs to be present in the environment.
Yeah. So I feel like I need to be kind of in something to really
Mm,
know what to talk about. But it's interesting too, because this is something that helped me heal from the divorce. Like you were talking about looking at your mom's chart and how it started to click and make sense. And that happened to me with my kid's dad. Like he has the most defined spleen ever. And he's a 2-4 generator, right? And then I'm so open. And so I was like really clingy to him. Like I literally can't survive if he's not in my life. And so that took a while, but it also like he really got frustrated with my questions and he didn't understand why I couldn't just leave stuff alone. I'm like, I'm like reading all the books. I'm like, I've got to be a good wife and read all the books. And now we're having kids, so let me read all the books. And he's like, oh no, you just do stuff. So, so I felt bad that I couldn't just do stuff like him. And like I was annoying people with my questions, but looking at the chart, it's like, no, that's how I navigate life. Like I literally don't know how to navigate if I'm not asking questions and talking in my environment. So
yeah. That's interesting. So you said that you were diagnosed with CPTSD and you have an undefined spleen and he has a defined spleen. So that security relationship and that feel good energy, do you feel like that's kind of where it came from, like that specific center, or do you feel like there was more aspects?
I feel like that was a huge aspect of it. And then plus him being a generator and just that generator energy. Interestingly enough, like 3 of my best friends were all born within a few days of him. And so they have very similar charts with that
Mm,
lit up spleen and their generators. And I just think it's funny that like we get along so well, but um, I mean that goes into other stuff, but the spleen was definitely part of it because when I look back, I realize like the specific things of like I do not know how to survive without him. I'm so financially and emotionally dependent on him. It took a really long time to separate out of that. And then again, just being on my own, I don't have anything to like propel me forward. So um there's certain like energetic things that I miss, but I just call my friends and that helps.
right. Borrow some energy.
Yeah.
Can I just talk to you for a little bit? I just need a hit. I just need a juice.
Yes. Yes. At one point I was leading this group program I had. It was like this it was really fun. It was called Boss Babes. But it was 4 people and they were all generators. And so whenever I'd be on a call with them, I'm like, okay, let's do this, let's do that. And I like got all these ideas. I'm like, yo, we should totally make like an in-person event and like get all this stuff. And then I get out of their auras and I'm like, wait, what? Like, I can't do that. So it gets really addictive. Do you find that when you're around generators? Like, do you have like do you amplify that?
Yeah. Okay. So listen, I don't go out much, and I really don't go around people. Like we truly, for the past 2 years, my partner and I have truly been getting out of this survival mode. We were literally this close to homeless. When I mean that, like, the only reason why we weren't homeless was because we had an RV that was paid off, and we stayed in the cheapest spot. So wait, what was your question again? Do I have?
Like, do you amplify stuff around generators? Like, do you get like
Yes. So
abundance of ideas?
when my partner's son comes here, he's a Manny Gen man, and he's defined. He's got the money line. He's got
Oh,
defined Ajna. He's got a defined G center, sacral. He's got the MG30. He's got power. He's here to do things, right? He's gonna be
yeah.
a cool kid when he develops. And so when he gets here, like, even me and my partner, you know what? This is something we should probably talk about. We feel like we work better on the weekends when he's here. And that's not like the best thing to do. We should be spending time with him, but we break it up. You know, we'll work in the morning, we'll go to the pool in the afternoon, we'll come back, but we do actually get a lot more done when he is here. Which is interesting, but man, he's got that money line, and it's so fascinating to watch, especially with my partner, because she'll like just do things and like give him things like, hey, I want this, I want that, and she'll just do it. I'm like, why are you just giving? She's like, you know, like it just kind of happens. Even I'll do it. He'll be like, I want this, and I'll do this, and I'll be like, dang, why did I just do it? Like, he could do that. He could freaking get up and get his own thing, but he's got that 2145, and he says it, and I'm like, sure, here you go. And then I take a step back, and I'm like, why am I just giving him shit? Like, why am I just this is, you know? So it's really interesting to watch. And that's one thing to observe, right? Like, when you have those channels, you influence other people. Our partner, I've got the channel of struggle, and this is something where I don't see it all the time, but it's so fascinating when I do see it, because when I'm with people and I'm too close to them, they do struggle, like, truly. And we live in this small space. Like, I'm right here. And if my partner's sitting where I'm sitting at the computer, I'm only like 2 feet from her in the chair. And she was working the other night, and I guess she was just having a hard time. She was like in her zone. And I was like, I don't know, I felt something. And I was like, I'm gonna go to bed. I'm just gonna go in the other room. And she said, as soon as I left, like, things got easier. There wasn't anything. Like, she just got things done a lot quicker, and she wasn't struggling anymore. And I'm like, man, that sucks for like me. I gotta like, are you struggling by my presence? Like, so it's yeah. So we're kind of still navigating it. It's interesting to watch. I'm trying to be mindful. Sometimes I don't recognize it, right? Like, sometimes I don't see that it's me. I'm the problem. It's me. Like, I don't see that it's me until, you know, so it's interesting. And that's what's so cool about human design. Like, when you can really take a step back and kind of just watch your movie, you're like, oh shit, I see it.
Yes, that's the thing, just the observation. That's cool that you picked up on that though. And I feel like I would totally internalize that myself. Like, oh, great, I just make people struggle. But then at the same time, it makes sense. Like, you talk about being a transformation coach, right? And it's like you get people to struggle in the struggles that they need to have so that they can grow.
Exactly.
Like, this is important stuff. So it's also a really amazing
Yeah.
quality to bring in.
And that's where it's my hardest, you know, my hardest challenge, but my biggest gift, because I have such a wide range that I can meet people at, you know what I mean? Like, from drugs to alcohol to abuse to, you know, just to family, to relationships. There's just so much that I've been through in the time that I've been here, where I'm not really shocked with what people tell me things, you know what I mean? Like, nothing really takes me back. I'm like, oh, that sucks. Okay. Let's see how we can work through this. But nothing really shocks me anymore, because of really just what I've gone through. So it does bring a lot of depth to where I can meet people in my sessions.
Yeah, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Sorry, that made me think of something else, but then it just left. Um, I think that's really great though. So when you're working with people, like, what do you usually do with people? Like, is it readings? Do you do like one reading? Do you have a program thing that you do?
So right now I have two different options. I do those lives on TikTok, where I just kind of get people interested in it, right? Because I love doing the lives on TikTok because it is an investment. Like if I'm going to spend 200, $300 on a 45, 60-minute reading, I kind of want to know what I'm getting myself into. So I like to do those lives because it sheds light on what you could get. And so I do have that kind of little situation going on, but then I do one-on-one readings where I have a 30, 45, and a 60-minute option. And then not most of those clients, some of those clients will transfer into a coaching program. I do have a coaching program where we meet, it's 3 sessions, and I give you templates and I send you videos in between to help you kind of just grow more awareness. Because what I've noticed with the readings, it's like, here, I give you all this information, but do you know what to do with it? Like, are you using it? Are you growing awareness? Are you like, what are you doing after that reading? So I really love my coaching program because we can really get specific. But with the one-on-one reading, I give you what you need. You come in and I'm like, all right, let's do this. And I've had a lot of success in the readings. One of the things that I really, truly enjoy and feel like I'm on my path is because I have had so many readings where there has been an instant transformation, where there is instant realizations, and people literally will leave and be like, I completely feel different. Like something has woken up, something has turned on, something has shifted. And that happens more often than not. So the one-on-one readings, I truly, truly enjoy. That's why I don't like the lives, because I can't get focused one-on-one, because that's what we're supposed to do. But it is a great avenue to get people kind of involved in human design.
Yeah, for sure. I do the lives too. They're a lot of fun.
They are. They're demanding. They are demanding. Talking about that 5th line projection. People are like, you got this? Do you have that? Do you come on every day? Are you going to send me this recording? And I'm like, I'm not sending you this recording. What are you talking about? Like, what? They come in with questions and they come in hot. But it's fun.
It is fun. Well, and the coaching program that you have sounds really cool too. And then you're part of a business thing too, right?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. On July 15th, we're actually hosting a business retreat. It is me and 4 other speakers. I don't have it up in front of me, so I'm going to do my best to try to remember those speakers, but it's a Gene Keys. We have a manifestation coach. There is a mindset coach. There's one other coach, and I'm just drawing a blank, and then there's a human design coach. So this business retreat is on Saturday. I think it's around 4 hours long. It's kind of lengthy, so if you can't attend the whole time, it will be recorded and posted so that you can watch it after. But you're basically getting 5 mini courses in one for the value of $55. So each of us are going to teach how you can show up better in your business. And if you join this business retreat, this is something that you can run through your authority to see like, ooh, do I want to work with a subconscious coach? Do I want to work with a mindset coach? Do I want to work with a human design coach? So if you're interested in making money using your energy, this could be a awesome business retreat to join, because you're getting insight into some of the, I feel like what's the right word? I don't know. I want to say like most valuable modalities that are kind of on the market right now in order to improve your business.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah, this manager put it together and she invited me, and she 1 minute she's inviting me, the next minute it's up. And I was like, holy shit, like that's cool. Yeah, I'm glad I'm just kind of here watching this, because the way that she like responded and got it up and got the landing page, I was like, I wouldn't have been able to do it that quickly. So that's cool to be on the receiving end and not the doing end.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's what we projectors need. We need some management to like just hold our hand and be like, here, we're gonna go do this thing now.
Yeah, just take me with you. I'll hang on. Just take me with you.
Yeah. That's like my dream. Okay, that sounds really cool. And then that reminds me too, I just want to talk a little bit too about business aspect, because being a projector in business can be really overwhelming, especially I feel like there's a lot of generator coaches out there and a lot of generator mindsets and ideas, like post 3 times a day, every single day for the rest of your life, and just all these things, and it gets kind of exhausting. And I think people are pretty done with the sending cold DMs, but when that was happening, it was like, I understand why it didn't work for me. Like nobody
Oh,
wants to have a cold DM from a projector. I did have a management coach at once, and he swore by it, but he gave me this script that was really nice. And so I tried it. I sent 1,000 messages between Facebook and Instagram. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go all in. I'm gonna experiment with this. And this was a couple years ago. It was at the very beginning of my experiment. And so I did that, and I was like, it turned into nothing. Like nobody. And he's like, I don't understand because I get all my clients this way. Like, well, you're a very defined mani-gen and you draw people in. I'm a mental projector. I'm very specific. It does not work. Anyway, so how have you started to figure out your flow as a projector in business? And what would you say to anybody who's a projector figuring this out?
yeah. So I guess I can kind of talk about pre-human design and then human design and how it's really made a difference, because pre-human design, when I was getting out of CrossFit, even in CrossFit, you know, like there should have been a different approach to the way that I marketed myself, the way that I was selling maybe my courses or my classes and all those things, but I didn't do it the way that I know how to do it now. And then when I left CrossFit, you know, I was trying to DJ, I was trying to do photography, just trying to figure out like, where am I going to go? Because I don't see myself going back into this industry anytime soon. And I would like make a DJ mix. I'm like, here, listen to this, here. And I'm just like shoving it in people's faces, trying to be seen, right? Because as a projector, we want to be seen. So I would shove it and be like DMing people, being like, if you have the time, please listen to this. Very bitter, very burnt out, unsuccessful, unfulfilled, just complete chaos, and just didn't work. And so if you're a projector, right, the first thing is you're waiting for recognition. Your profile is what you want to be recognized for, hands down. Like if you want to be a photographer, you need to be posting your photos. If you're a videographer, you're posting your videos. If you are a human design coach, you're posting what you're teaching. Yes, you can post your offers, but people are going to be interested in you as a projector when you're sharing your knowledge and your wealth and your wisdom, because that's your display that you have mastered something and you have mastered a system. A lot of projectors these days are like, I see things and I'm going to offer guidance. And it's like, okay, but are you utilizing a system to make this effective? If you're not utilizing a system, that's when it's going to be really hard to find that flow within yourself, because you're just kind of like, it's kind of like you're just throwing shit at the wall, kind of like I was, and hoping that it sticks. So when you can get specific on like what you want to be recognized for, that is where you can really start taking your power back and being like, okay, I don't have this abundant amount of energy. So I need to, when the energy is there, work on my skill set, work on what I do want to be recognized for, and then display that. That's not going to happen consistently. So that's where you need to find your flow, because it's going to, as a projector, you've said it, right? Getting comfortable with the inconsistencies. It's like sometimes the energy is there, sometimes the energy is not, right? I'm a splenic projector. So when I have an idea for a content, if I literally don't like make it right then, right now, it's gone. And that's why a lot of my content, like my hair's all messed up or I don't have any makeup, because if I try to make it later, it's not the same. It's not intuitive. I don't know. It just doesn't work for me very well. But what I found to be really helpful, if I do have those ideas, I write them down, I come back to them later, but I make, time and space to bulk my content. It's like, I'm going to make a bunch right now, and then I'm going to relax and I'll answer a few in between here and there. So it really has been helpful to break those limiting beliefs that, yes, you've got to be consistent. And yes, you got to post. Now, I will say at the beginning, it would be beneficial to do those things, because you got to get going.
It's a momentum.
You got to get it off the ground. Like I remember at the beginning of my TikTok journey, it was like 1 a.m, 1 p.m. for a good solid 3 or 4 months. I did 2 videos a day. And that's where I really started gaining traction. And then I started experimenting, right? And this is where you start learning kind of your voice. And that's shocking. And that's where, if you have your human design, look at your Mercury gate. Like this is your voice and this is your communication. This can be a really good insight into the way that you're showing up behind your content as well. So I've learned to really honor my energy when it's there, and to not get upset when it's not, right? And I've been really more, more graceful with myself in the way that I show up, because before I'm like, okay, I've got to meet this deadline. I've got to do this and I've got to get it out. I've got to have this many podcasts posted this. And I'm like, I'm not even following that mindset anymore. It's like, I'm going to post once a month and I'm going to have one podcast episode maybe every once a month or once every 6 weeks. And that's fine. And it's allowing myself to be okay with those things. Am I making sense? Have I answered your question?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, just having like being okay with the inconsistencies and starting to get in the flow. And it feels like probably the 3 line, because I can resonate with this. Like the more you show up, the more you figure out
Yeah.
what your voice is and what works for you. And I like how you said as a projector, you want to be recognized for your profile, because that is really huge. And I always feel like your definition really speaks to what you're being recognized for as well,
Yeah.
especially like you have the one channel, I have the one channel, and then add the profile to it. And it's like, oh, that really makes sense. Like you
Yes.
have this 3 line in the struggle and the shock, like you got all these experiences, and then you're able to share it in this universal way, in this way that people can resonate with you because you're not judging. You're like, okay, I've been there. Okay, let's talk about this. So
Exactly.
yeah, putting that together, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So creating content, I feel like as a projector, it's not going to be the same for everybody. There's definitely not one technique that works. I will say that what I am not willing to do is and it's so uncomfortable. Like last night, I was trying to talk about the business retreat. I'm like, we've got this business retreat. It's this, and like I was stuttering. I couldn't even like get it out. It's like you could tell how uncomfortable I was talking about this thing. So there's just things that I'm not willing to do. And I'm not really willing to talk about my offers or just come in and be like, oh yeah, I have this, I have that. Instead, I want you to ask me. Like, if you ask me like, oh, what are your offers? Now I know that you're interested. But I'm not willing to just go in and be like, this is what I have, this is what I offer. What do you want to do? Like, I don't want to put the pressure on anybody else, because that's what I feel like I've done with my undefined route. I've come in and I'm like, answer. I'm putting this pressure on you. You've got to give me an answer. And I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to pressure people to come to me or pressure people to invite me in. So I really have learned to take a step back and allow those invitations to come.
That's a really beautiful aspect too, because that's something I've played with a little bit as well. Like I will say stuff like, if this resonates with you, reach out to me, let's work together or something. And I'm just kind of experimenting. Like, does this work? Does the people come to me from this? How does it feel when I say this? And it's an interesting thing. But I was gonna say too, like, yeah, when I asked you about the business thing, you were like, oh yeah, here it is. Here's all the things, and you did great talking about it. But having to just talk about it to like promote yourself, that felt weird.
Yeah, sorry, my dogs are losing it. And hopefully you didn't catch any of that on your
I didn't.
audio. Someone knocked on our door. We don't ever have guests. And today somebody decided to knock on our door. So hopefully you didn't catch any of that chaos.
No, it was perfect. It was perfect. So you're good. Well, I'm gonna say, like, I'm trying to honor your time and not talk for like 5 hours like I always want to do. Thank you so much for coming on here and for being so vulnerable and for sharing your experience. I somehow interact with a lot of splenic projectors, so I'm happy to have another episode to direct people to feel the splenic energy. Is
Yeah,
there
I felt
anything else you wanted to share or chat about?
Well, one, thank you for inviting me. I felt like this was fun. And I truly do enjoy talking with other people. And every time I've spoken with you, I've even had more realizations for myself. So yeah, these exchanges are amazing. So thank you for having me on here. The last thing I guess I would want to say to your audience is I feel like everyone says this. I'm going to say, just experiment with your energy, just allow yourself to keep experimenting. And I feel like that's what everybody says, but it's so true. One of the things that I really tell people is that I'm not here to convince you of anything. Like, I'm really not. I'm not trying to tell you that this is something that you need to follow. I'm not here to, to this is the one way and this works and this is the only pathway. Like, honestly, I'm just here to say, like, there's potential here and you have this potential inside of you. And if you're wanting to truly awaken that potential and to start living a life that is truly fulfilling to you, this is something worth trying and it's something worth experimenting. And from myself, as I know, at the beginning of my journey, when I was following my authority, I lost a lot of things. It wasn't pretty. It truly, truly, truly wasn't pretty. And that may be your experience too. You may start following human design being like, I'm losing, it may feel like you're losing a lot of things, or maybe you're changing a lot of things, or things are just kind of falling out of your life. And sometimes that's what's meant to happen. And one thing that you have to just trust is that your authority does know all. And really leaning into that, the more that I've seen it show up and the more that it has shown up in my life, it's truly brought some of the most beautiful experiences, but has allowed me to finally live a life where I'm just like not in survival mode for the first time. And that's huge for me. It truly, truly is. And I have the perspective, what's interesting is my perspective is survival. And so it's been something that I'm like trying to also work through, because I feel like I see things out of a survival state, but I'm not meant to be in survival mode all the time. So if you're somebody who's been experimenting with your human design and, and it's felt like maybe things have been hard or challenging, keep experimenting, keep trusting, keep feeling, and really lean into those signature feelings of success. Even though things were really, really hard and falling apart with the way that it felt, there was still that success feeling that was coming through. So really hang on to those energetic feelings, because I feel like they reveal a lot to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.